All right, morning. Welcome to the Locker Room, brought to you by the Tech Locker. This is the very first episode of the Locker Room. The idea being that we bring professional insight into the locker room to share the views, thoughts, the real thought leadership, deep sort of opinions of what matters. People who've been there and done it. Maybe people who haven't been there and done anything. Doesn't really matter. It's about bringing people into the locker room to get their views down around all things technology, leadership, and strategy, which is what the Tech Locker looks to deliver. So, like, subscribe. I think you meant to point around the screen at things that appear. We'll get there. But like, subscribe, comment. If you want to appear in the Tech Locker, come and have a chat. Please let me know. We've got a fantastic list of people who do want to follow this up with their own views around their own disciplines and different areas. So really excited about what's to come on this particular channel as well. But do like and subscribe to keep in touch and very much help us improve by giving us your comments as well. Today, we've got someone who quite simply oozes passion about what they do. I've never seen anybody who, the old cliche, cut them in half, it says something in the middle. This guy oozes passion. Do you know what? I'll leave it there. I'll let him introduce himself. So please welcome for the very first, the inaugural locker room interview, Mr. Lee Summerfield. Lee, tell us all about yourself.
What an honor to be the first one in the locker room. So thank you very much for that. Absolutely delighted to be here and chat with you about all things UX and stuff. So really looking forward to it. I'm head of UX at AJ Bell. I've been a designer all my life. My 27th year actually as a designer, and my 15th year as a UX designer. So I've been around the block. Probably forgot more than I've learned over that time as well. But really looking forward to sort of sharing some views. Like you said, I'm extremely passionate about this stuff. I love talking about UX. So this is a great platform. Really appreciate you having me on.
And the first one, feel pressure? You pressured by being the first guest, setting the bar?
No, not at all. I'd be disappointed if I wasn't the first one, let's face it.
Brilliant. And you're an artist as well. You're literally spanning the whole range of creativity then.
Indeed. Even got paintings going on behind me, I think there. I am.
This is just a sales pitch for you.
Absolutely. I am just a creative, a naturally creative person. I always have been. It's just the way that my mind functions, and how that's. I know some of the discussion that we'll be having today about. I think like my perception of design, how that's changed, how I see the industry changing and all stuff like that. But even when I'm not UXing, I'm still being creative by it's just the way I relax as well.
Quite right. So nice little insight into what's to come to keep people interested. I like it. It's good. So let's get into it then. So what's your definition of design of UX? Because a lot of people, you talk to them, you get 10 different views from 10 different people. So you live and breathe this stuff. So what do you consider the definition to be?
Definition wise, I mean, I've never gone far away from NNG Group's definition. It's been there for years. UX encompasses the end user's interactions with a company, its products and its services, right? Bump, there you go, in a nutshell. I know when I've been bringing on and building teams, I get people to sort of memorize that. So when they're going out and people, what is UX? Because like you say, you get some varied answers around that. So I think my philosophy around UX, around design, is always to try and keep things simple. It's built from foundations and stuff. So that's a definition I think that like anyone can understand. It's also my license. I've used that as a license to stick my nose in and get involved in stuff. And, so when you get that, people, well, who are you and what you're doing? Well, this encompasses end users. I'm in there sort of thing. So I think, like, if you break it down a little bit, think about like the word, well, user or customer, CX, UX. They're part of the same sort of family. The word experience, I think, is interesting because ultimately, experience is about how you feel about something. I think that's one of the things that I love about the job that I do. If I was in front of a group of people and I asked you to talk about a great experience that you had, or conversely, I asked someone to talk about a really horrible experience they had, ultimately what they would do is tell me how it made them feel, right? So I love that aspect of it, that it's not, you know, we're not ticking boxes or anything like that. It's about feeling and stuff.
So let's touch on that a little bit, because I think it's one of those roles that is kind of intrinsically linked with technology, with web products, with technology based products. But you know, you're talking about experience there at a level that it transcends technology. It's way more than that. Do you consider the kind of the user experience that is applicable? You can execute that outside of tech as well as obviously in that stack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, you know, that's one of the things where we've seen UX grow, and like I mentioned CX before as an example. To me, they're all sort of part of the same family. I mean, like if we were to sort of concentrate on a let's say we had an app, right, and it was so someone come to a website, they really liked the website, they downloaded the app, perfect, they beautiful onboarding that they went through, and so far their experience is absolutely fabulous, lovely jubbly, and then they log onto the app and whatever it is, and then they hit a problem and they call up the customer services team, and then they're answered the phone by, yeah, what can I help you? Well, all of a sudden, that's part of the experience, right? So, you know, and that's not tech. That's a human interaction with someone. So I think UX goes way beyond, you know, creating UI and stuff like that. It's about how we see how these things link together. When someone, if a user or a customer is talking about their experience of a company, they don't just go like, oh, well, you know, I like that bit of it, or that. Everything to them is joined together, right? So when we talk about
it's a culture almost. You're describing a business-wide culture, regardless of whether it's a website or a service model or whatever. It's a culture, a little bit, I suppose, a little bit like, you know, DevOps in the sense of it's not a person necessarily or a tool or a thing. It is much more of that kind of cultural space, that journey around shifting a mindset and a culture across the business. So you must have come up against hurdles of people who don't get what you do and just think that you just make things pretty, right? The amount of times I've heard that. So how do you go about embedding that culture, that shift?
Yeah, absolutely. Come across people where, you know, they don't get what we do. And I used to get really annoyed with that as well. Oh, you're the guys who just make things look good. Like, you know, no. Nowadays I've got a lot better at that. I sort of rub my hands together and go, okay, let's change your mind, sort of thing. I think so. I've been at companies where I've failed. Right, I think that's important to put out there. I'm actually proud of the scars that I've got, and because of those experiences, I've then gone on to other companies where, you know, I have succeeded. My what I believe in terms of design hasn't changed between a place where I failed or a place where I've succeeded. Actually, then it comes down to things like you talk about, like culture and stuff like that, and the types of people that you can engage with. So, like as an example where I failed before, trying to embed UX like upwards and hitting those ceilings or hitting places where you can't get past. Actually, places where I've succeeded, then I've gone, right, I've learned from that. When I go into this place, I'll go to the top guy and I'll go down, right? So if I can engage with the CTO or the MD or whoever it is and get them on my side, then they provide you with that air cover then, that when you're then sort of going through different people and working with products and working with people who perhaps don't fully get what you're doing, you know that you've got that support from the top. So I think that's been definitely an observation of mine that's helped me.
I think you just touched on a really good point there around excuse me, around how deep you have to go through the organization. And you have your natural, when you're talking about your kind of traditional UX in the tech-based landscape, you've got your very traditional touch points, BAs, your product guys, your SMEs across the business. But as soon as you get to sort of that level, then you are needing to train people in a language as well, a language of how you talk and you present and you bring people with you on that journey. Some you and I have got some of the same scars, at least in the sense of I've had people saying it's not necessary. Why are we investing in that team? We've got this far without them. So what's changed? What have you seen over all of those years where you kind of go, do you know what? Maybe 20 years ago you didn't need a lead, or you certainly didn't need at least a team of UX UI designers, but now you absolutely do. So what's been the shift? Where was the inflection, do you think?
I think now more businesses are understanding that the power of UX, if you wish, is that, and to me, it's the ultimate competitive edge, right? Your more traditional USPs of perhaps something like price, or how do you stand out from the competition? Something like price, you can say, oh, we're the cheapest, and you can squeeze that, but it's finite, right? Like they only go so far before then the business goes, well, actually, we're not making any money here, or something like that. Whereas something to do with an experience, like we've touched upon, how someone can perceive your company, well, that's never finite. That can constantly get better all the time. So it becomes this competitive edge that you, as a business, you can control as well, if that makes sense. And because you talked a little bit before about like how it links with things. Like if I sort of say, I often compare, use the analogy of a body, right, and think of a business, and depending on who I talk to, you can go to like a customer service team and say, you're the heart of this operation, right? These big or marketing, you're the brain, right? You're the brains here. You can really G them up and get them sort of interested and bought into that. What's UX? What's UX is one of them things, and I liken us to we're the veins or the nervous system. We're the thing that links all these big organs together, sort of thing. So when you talk about that competitive edge, it's about technology, but it's also about brand and all these other things that we're trying to link together to provide that experience. And then it is about liaising with customer services and the people that are on the phones to people, and understanding all that and making them part of it as well. So to me, that's where it's changed. I think, as I say, it's the ultimate competitive edge, and I think more and more businesses are realizing that now, especially in the world that we are with phones and apps, and it's so easy to download stuff now, and all of us as users have certain expectations now about things.
I'm going to come back to that. That's a good point. I'm going to come back to that one in a second. But it would be remiss, as we're in the locker room, not to use some kind of sporting analogy. And you said there around how who's the brains, who's the heart, that kind of thing. And I get that. I think we've all heard that. Excuse me. Do you almost feel that your teams are kind of like the really good referee that, at the end of the game, you haven't even really seen the referee. You didn't notice that he or she was there. You just know the game played brilliantly, seamlessly, and it didn't stop and it flowed. And, regardless of your sport, the person with the whistle didn't hold it up, and they're a really great referee. Do you almost see your teams as, if we're doing our job, we're kind of almost forgotten about because it just happens? It's almost, people consider it a very natural thing in the end, even though a lot of time and effort has gone in to take people on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've never thought about it in them terms before, but maybe I'll start taking a yellow card and a red card into work now. I really like that idea, and a whistle. That'd be great. No, absolutely. That idea touched upon that word expectations. One of the things that I really love, and I get all my guys to think about this. Is Kano modeling. I don't know whether we've ever talked about it before, but there's basically this Japanese professor back before even computers were a thing, right? And he worked out this graph around expectations, and there's a part of this graph that talks about people's basic expectations about stuff. So you're just touching there about that referee of like, you almost don't know he's there. So that idea of basic expectations is the only thing to remember about them is you can only ever get them wrong, right? Even if you get them right, no one really cares.
Yeah.
Right? But if you get them wrong, well, you're going to hear about it.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And if you're not willing, and on a Kano model, actually the basic expectations take the most resource, it takes the most time, it takes the most money, it takes the most focus. But if you're explaining that to someone on the business side of things, they're going, yeah, but it never gets us above that neutral line, but we've got to get there, right? And then we can start talking about how do we make things delightful, how do we go about really sort of making this an unbelievable experience for someone. Like, forget about that. If you're not meeting basic expectations, forget about the rest.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, and I think many of us can appreciate, like you say, that expectation level where no one ever tells you. Well, rarely do you get that's amazing, that's brilliant. You get told what's gone wrong there, why is that broken, and I think never more so. I would imagine when you the shop window, and that's ultimately what a really good UI and a good experience that backs that up is. You touched a minute ago or so around apps and consumer expectations, and I think the way I see the shift over years is that's changed quite a lot from a corporate sense, in as much as you used to turn up at your desk, you'd sit with an enormous box in front of you, and you'd click a couple of icons and you'd just do your thing, and then you go home. And we didn't have all of this smart technology around us to reset our expectations.
Yeah.
And so as Joe Public, you go home, you play your games on your phone, or you use whatever apps you use to track mileage or tax or anything else you might choose to use it for. You can't leave the office these days because you've got all of your Teams apps and everything else in your hand, in the palm of your pocket. How has that changed? How do you stay current and make sure that you can still deliver an experience that meets those expectations? And that bar's seemingly constantly changing now. But how do you make sure that you can stay current and deliver against web, mobile, wearable, even? That's a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the answer to that, I think it just comes down to research, right? I think like one of the biggest battles that we have is this idea of embedding research into stuff, because actually companies want to churn things, they want to get it out quick, and like it's the first thing to go. Like, we haven't got time for that, right? And actually it's changing that mindset that's half the battle. So you're just talking about like how things quickly change and stuff like that. If we're not doing proper research, if we're not understanding what those basic expectations of people are, and the fact that they're shifting all the time, right? If you think about the thing is, you could come up with something that you think is a delightful experience. Let's think about like something like a car, for instance, right? Back in our day when we were starting to learn to drive, bet you had a choke on your car. Most like if we've got any right. So like chokes don't exist anymore, right? Let's bring it back up to sort of modern day. One of the delightful. I've not got one in my car, but I know people who have got one. A button that you press and it will reverse parallel park for you, right? Delightful. I'll like in 5 or 10 years, that will just become a basic expectation of people, right? And you will have a whole generation of drivers who literally don't know how to park because they've just got a button that they press, and that will become an absolute basic expectation. So like the things that you talk about there, how do we keep on top of things? You've got to keep asking people. You've got to understand pain points. You've got to do the research on stuff. And I do think in our world sometimes that people see the output, right? They see the UI, they see like, oh, it looks nice and all that sort of thing. But actually, that's just an output of so much other stuff that goes on in terms of that research, in terms of that engaging with users and trying to understand what it is and putting things into context and all that stuff that goes on to help deliver a design sort of thing.
Yeah, no, so there's a couple of things in there. I'm going to come back to one of them shortly. But I think what you've started to slide us towards there is this, like I said, the shift in expectations, these really lovely features, and increasingly so, AI is influencing our world. I put a post up the other day around how AI has become the new I. You put AI on something, and like I did with a can of pop that was flavored by AI because I was just curious, you buy it. I'm a marketing dream. I'm just like, stick something on it, make it pretty, I'm going to buy it. But I do believe that we can dilute the impact and the positive effect of AI on a role level, on a doing your job kind of scale. There's a lot of fear that AI is going to replace many roles, whether that's your kind of skilled labor in warehouses through robots and the like, or whether that's in technology. And I know there's a lot of tools, to support engineers. Where does UX, where do designers fit in with the AI landscape? Is this something that you're looking over your shoulder at, or is it something that you're positively embracing?
Embracing. I think that those people who fear AI, like, will almost by that sort of attitude, sort of like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy almost sort of thing. I think there's aspects of AI that are sort of really interesting. I think it will become like there's some really great plugins that we can sort of automatically use, for instance, on Figma. Like back in the day, we used to use like lorem ipsum and stuff like that, right? Now, I'm going back years, but like nowadays, actually, we want to design content first and stuff like that. It's more difficult to do. Actually, we can get AI to help us with that, and we can plug it into Figma and tell it to churn out some. So as a design, like whereas before I might be waiting for something, actually now I can plug AI in, and that really helps me with my job sort of thing. So I think there are aspects of AI, and I'd go for anyone in tech really to use AI in a way that will make their job easier. And I think there's loads of opportunities in that. I don't believe that AI is going to certainly from a creative angle. I've got no fears that AI is going to start designing stuff because. Designing stuff in a way that, like, if we think about like creativity and stuff, us right side brain sort of thinkers who are a little bit crazy and stuff like that. I think it's all the left side brain. You've got to worry about stuff, because I think that can actually be churned out in AI, number crunching, and like you're doomed. Us creators, I actually say that. I actually think, like, from the creative side of things, how do you create something that's unique, right, constantly? How do you I struggle with that. I've got, like just said before, 27 years experience. I just can't see AI coming along and like churning stuff out that's unique, that we as people who will consume the stuff that it creates will accept as, oh, I really like that. I think like users have got we will recognize it and we will get bored of it because it's not truly unique.
No, I think and you make a good point, and I'm sure you jest by suggesting
Of
people are
course, I
doomed,
jest.
but I think automation's a big driver across all industry, right? You know, we want to be able to make things faster. We're always on the hunt for things to be faster, quicker, slicker, and you know that is what it is. So I think automation is a massive part of that, but there is no you can't divorce yourself from human experience, and you know, experience in the sense of, yeah, but I've seen that before, and I know that where something says that's not real, I can tell you that actually what's happened is it's just backwards in the machine, or it's folded over, or whatever it might be. You know, that human experience, that touch element, you know, you can't remove that completely. And so you point around driving something that's truly unique. I genuinely don't feel, well, your real sort of positive embracing of AI to generate content and all of the things you touched on there, I think that's magic, and most disciplines will do that. You know, the use of Copilot in engineering to do a lot of the work that should just be automatically done, so that we can get to the real bulk of the innovation. And I think that's the heart of what we all really strive to do, right? In technology, we want to be innovative, we want to be creative in wherever shape or form that is. So I think that's an exciting place to be, and certainly one from a right-sided brain perspective. I can see how that works. All right, quick gear change. Career. What was your path in a bit of a nutshell? How did you go from 20 odd years ago to present day running a team?
Yeah, so always been a designer. Graphic design started out with, web design. So back in, you know, I took a trip out to the States back in '98. It was .com this, .com that everywhere. I was a graphic designer at the time, switched to becoming a web designer, learned a bit of HTML, joined an agency, worked on the agency side for about 10 years in various different roles. And then got into UX, working for NICE, not the biscuits, unfortunately, but the National Institute of Clinical Excellence. And actually, I was really lucky because I joined them at a time when they were way ahead of their time. Actually, we were back in like 2010, and we were creating a design system for 15 different online products before the term design system even existed. And I thought, I spent 4.5 years there. I was perhaps a little bit naive in that I thought, like, that's the way everywhere worked, because they did really great research. We would, you know, we would be speaking with doctors and nurses, and they would be feeding back on stuff, and then we would implement it. And it was like, you know, this is when you talk about UX processes and things like that, it was fabulous. And then from there, I stayed in healthcare, worked for a company that designed PAS systems. That was the complete opposite of NICE. Like, that was the you know, these, what I sort of said, silo teams, and it felt as if they were all competing against each other. Whereas, you know, UX, like I said before, we're the thing that tries to link everything together, right? And when you're all, so even dealing with silo teams and stuff, it just felt wrong. And then from there, I made the switch to AJ Bell. So I've been at AJ Bell 5.5 years now. I was pretty much the first UX person in the head office in Manchester. Now there's 9 of us, which is amazing. And we've gone from AJ Bell, really interesting in terms of there's 2 very distinct distribution channels in terms of an advice side platform and then a D2C side. And basically we've created a centralized UX function, and then dedicated product teams. So, you know, dedicated advisor resource in UX and stuff. We sit in tech, which I think is the right place for us to sit. So we don't actually report into product. You know, we're there to challenge them, which I think is the right place for us to be. And we're on, you know, a journey of sort of continue to raise the profile of UX. As I said before, when we were talking about you know, that ultimate competitive edge, one of the things that I love about what we do is it never ends, right? We get something out and then we're constantly thinking, how do we make that better? How do we make that better?
That's the magic, isn't it? I think that's
Yeah.
what gets a lot of us out of bed to go and do that. How do we? All right, that's good. How do we make it better? You know, how do we? And again, we're running out of unique ideas. I think regardless of which domain you work in, I think there's very few truly unique ideas out there. It's about how you make better use of modern or different or emerging technology to drive it and evolve it to that next level, and fundamentally give people, give consumers, whether that's business or private consumers, you know, what they need. And so a team of 9 is fantastic. And it's quite a luxurious position. I think most businesses would probably be super ecstatic about having that wealth of talent. It's that time of year where, you know, we've got kids at school. Say kids, shows how old I am now. We've got kids at school who are considering their options, their career journeys for themselves, and they're trying to. I don't know how they do it, to be honest, because you've never done all of these jobs, have you? You're meant to choose one, but I think you've got to try and pitch yourself in that well-balanced. I'll give myself choices, some options. Jen, I suppose that's where the name comes from. But what would be your advice, given the depth of roles? And you talked about research earlier, and I know that's a role within the kind of UX space, you know, the user research team. I also know you're a strong advocate of sort of apprenticeships. I believe you got an award-winning apprentice even on your books. So talk us through that. What's your advice to a 13-year-old right now who's thinking about a possible career in this space?
I think there's a lot of pressure on kids now to make decisions earlier, isn't there? You know, like you just said there, 13-year-old kid. I didn't actually get into design until I was like 23. I'd already done my degree. I did a degree in English. Like, you know, I do think that my generation's the last of that could, like, I went to university just to be university educated, right? But my degree didn't really matter. Whereas now you're talking about, like you've just said, 13-year-olds who are having to make choices. Like, personally, I think far too early. That you know, and then you get on to you know, my youngest son, my eldest stepdaughter. They've just finished their GCSEs. They're in college now. There's so much pressure on them to make decisions earlier and earlier. We're both fans of the TED Talk by Mr. Ken Robinson.
Yeah, it's brilliant. What a talk. If anybody hasn't watched that one, go and find that one. That is 15 minutes of your life well worth spending. It's very entertaining and a super insightful speech around not educating creativity out of kids, basically. Out of all of us, but fundamentally out of kids at a young age. It's great.
Almost how creativity is taught out of us, sort of thing, as you go through school, and you're taught that you know, like in the way that you are educated in exams and all things like that, you can't be wrong and don't get that wrong, and you know, and actually, like, I've just had 2 new apprentices join my team, and I'll touch upon apprentices in a bit. And I tell all my team literally on a daily basis, make mistakes. The only time any of my team will get in trouble with me is if they're not making mistakes. Like, and yet, you know, our whole education system, and like you said, it is a fantastic talk. That back to 13-year-olds though, I think obviously there's more focus on, you know, the core stuff, like, you know, English and maths, and even what the Prime Minister was talking about, those things going all the way up to your 18 sort of thing, almost like, you know, like, let's put you in this box and you stay there sort of thing. So I'd counteract that by going, do something that just makes you feel good, right? And whether that's art, whether that's PE, whether that's actually history. I love his, you know, like something that gives you the goosebumps or something that like, you know, when I'm talking with people, when we're into, we've brought on junior designers, we've brought on apprentices. Really, all I'm looking for is that little spark in their eyes, right? Everything else can be taught, right? But that little spark, something that they're passionate about, something that they can talk eloquently about, and you can see that it gets them excited. That's the bit that I'm looking for. So I think, you know, any kid that's thinking about options, you know, do something that makes you feel good would be my advice on that.
And I think that is it in a nutshell, isn't it? I think, you know, you've got to chase what makes it fun. Yes, absolutely. You know, for the point of the record, you know, you've got to get your maths and your English and all those things. Of course you do. They are important. But, you know, when you're considering where you're going to be in 10 years' time, you know, it should be doing something fun. What's that old expression? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
And something tells me, despite you obviously having a heavy paper round, Lee, you've never worked a day in your life because you clearly love everything you do.
Absolutely.
What's your big hope for the industry? What do you, if you were to retire today and you were to sit and carry on doing your painting in your quiet time, what would you hope to read in the press X number of years from now?
That ultimately design gets its seat at the table, if you wish. I mean, I think about it like this: you have in any business, you've got a load of people who look after the business needs, right? Specialists like you know, accountants and BAs and product people and specialists in that field that will absolutely sit down. Like, there's no business out there that just makes that up, right? Like, it's really important specialist stuff. In tech, you have the same sort of what's name again, like any technology needs. You don't have a guess at that, right? You have got engineers and developers and people looking after infrastructure, and like, it is, again, specialist absolutely needs it. I obviously believe that there's another part in all that balance, in that there are user needs to be had. And I think, you know, part of the battle that I've had in my career is that, like, I think there's, depending on the business, whether it's ego or whether it's arrogance or something else, the business has got, oh, well, we know what they want. I'm like, well, do you? Like, I think that needs just the special, like UX specialists, researchers, to actually align the business needs, the technology needs, and the user needs. If all that can be balanced out, then you can create some like really, really amazing stuff. So my goal, like, if is that UX is thought of in those, it's the same weight, if you wish, that balance is there, and we don't have to fight for it. It's accepted. Let them guys get on with it. They know what they're doing, and they're doing it for the right reasons as well. Because I think, you know, so if I think about some of the people on my team, junior designers, apprentices, where they're going to be in 10, 15 years time, it will be hopefully not having the battles that I've had or that I've had in my career.
I like it, and I think that kind of brings us neatly to the end of what has been a fantastic conversation. But before we go, we're in the locker room. You know, the whole point of the Tech Locker is that, you know, we look to protect businesses' investment around their technology and help them make sure that, you know, everything that they want in that space is well looked after. What's in your locker, Lee? What's in your locker that's made you a success?
I did a talk actually about 12 months ago. And part of that talk was I talked about my three superpowers. And actually, they're not superpowers. I did have a slide up with this old Superman vest on and all stuff like that. But they're not superpowers. They're things that you can learn and establish about yourself. That one of them is that I'd never thought of myself as a patient person before. And actually, I think it was like my understanding of the definition of patience. Like, it come about from a LinkedIn post where this guy was talking about, he saw patience was a weakness sort of thing. And that was quite interesting. And then I realized when I looked at the actual definition of patience that, like, I am a patient man. Like, patience is nothing about waiting or being passive. Actually, patience means the ability to tolerate something. to tolerate it and keep your head, keep an even keel. Don't and so I think in the world that I live in what I'm trying to achieve, I hadn't really accepted that about myself. So I learned something about myself through that, which is great. So all my guys, have that patience. We're there to plant seeds as well. We might not see the immediate benefits of what we're doing, but they will come if we carry on having that patience and working towards the right thing. My second one is a phrase that I use all the time: flip the coin. I guess more educated people than me would call it reframing, right? I just truly believe that there is opportunity in every bad situation that there is.
Agreed.
Whatever you are faced with, and flip the coin, because if you there is something there to be taken from that, there is a positive to be taken. I think back on all my career, that is definitely the case. So that's something again that I love to instill in my team. And the third one, we've touched upon it already, but make mistakes. I am where I am today because of the mistakes that I've made, if that makes sense. And I realize that there's a great Michael Jordan quote, isn't there, that talks about the amount of games that he's played and the amount of points that he scored, but also about the amount of times that he's missed. And it's his understanding that it's all their misses that made that he realizes without them, he wouldn't be what he was, if and I get that. I absolutely get that. So again, in the creative world that we sort of live in, and we're trying to create all these great things, you can't do it if you're not willing to put yourself out there and go, I'll get this wrong. I'll get this wrong. I'll get this because then on the 15th variation where you've got it right, and that's a great feeling when you get there.
I mean, WD-40 came out of 39 failed attempts, didn't it? And the great man himself, Mr. Nicolas Cage, said in a film, without defeat you can't appreciate success. So I think those are all really good things to keep in your locker. Lee, thank you so much for being on this very first episode of The Locker Room.
Pleasure.
Thank you for sharing your views. Provocative as always, but fundamentally passionate as ever. And I think that's what people will definitely see. That's certainly where I saw some really interesting insights into where you think the industry may go. The use of AI, I think that's key. And the continued push to get a proper seat for design at all the tables and all the appropriate tables. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody, please subscribe, comment. Love to hear your views on anything that Lee's raised today. Whether you agree, whether you disagree, it's all good debate. That's the point of this. It's there's no one size fits all in any of these conversations. So let us know your thoughts. Let us know who you'd like to see or what type of person you'd like to see in the locker room as well. Follow us, subscribe, hit all the bells wherever they are, and make sure you keep in touch with the locker room. Until next time, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Cheers.